Monetary policy remains one of the government's key tools in maintaining economic stability, and in Malaysia, this responsibility lies with Bank Negara Malaysia. Managed through its control of the overnight policy rate, or OPR, the OPR influences interest rates across the economy, affecting spending, investment, and overall economic growth. As highlighted in the STARS article published on 11 June 2024, economists expect Bank Negara Malaysia to maintain the OPR at 3.00% for the remainder of the year. This decision reflects a balanced approach between supporting economic growth and managing inflation. While Malaysia's economy is showing signs of recovery, particularly in private consumption and investment activity, severe risks remain. These include potential inflationary pressures arising from subsidy rationalization and ongoing global economic uncertainties. Given these conditions, maintaining the current interest rate is seen as a prudent move, allowing the economy to continue expanding without placing unnecessary pressure on households and businesses.
According from article The Star News 2024, a short summary of an economic, Bank Negara Malaysia have decided to keep the overnight policy rate or OPR unchanged. This decision was made after the Monetary Policy Committee reviewed current economic conditions in Malaysia and around the world. Malaysia economic is growing at a stable and sustainable pace. Domestic demand continues to support growth, while foreign investment also contribute positively. As the economy is not overheated, there is no urgent need to increase interest rate. The decision affects several key groups. Consumers benefit from stable borrowing costs, which support spending on housing and daily needs. Businesses also benefit as a stable interest rate encourages investment and expansion. At the same time, the government benefits from a stable financial environment. In terms of inflation, although there are some price pressure from global factor, inflation remains under control and within Bank Negara Malaysia expectation. Keeping the OPR unchanged helped manage price without showing economic growth.
Hi, I'm Umaira, and with my partner today, Christina. We begin with the monetary policy transmission mechanism, specifically the interest rate channel, which is one of the primary tools used by central banks to influence economic activity. So when Bank Negara Malaysia adjusts to OPR, it directly affects short-term interbank lending rates. A higher OPR raises the cost of funds for financial institutions, while a lower OPR reduces these costs. These changes are transmitted to the real economy through adjustments in base lending rates, base financing rates, and deposit rates, a process known as interest rate pass-through. For households, higher interest rates increase debt servicing costs for mortgage, personal loans, and higher purchase financing, thereby reducing disposable income and consumption expenditure. Similarly, for firms, higher borrowing costs raise the cost of capital, discouraging investment in machinery, technology, and labor. As consumption and investment are the key components of aggregate demand, the interest rate channel plays a crucial role in macroeconomic stabilization.
I'm Christina, so the second topic is about Fisher equation and inflation expectation. To further analyze interest rates, economists rely on the Fisher equation, which defines the relationship between nominal interest rates, real interest rates, and inflation. Real interest rate equals nominal interest rate minus inflation. So this implies that the true economic cost of borrowing depends not only on the nominal interest rate, but also on inflation expectation. In the Malaysian context, if the OPR remains at 3% while inflation expectation increase due to subsidy rationalization or supply-side shocks, the real interest rate declines, resulting in more accommodative monetary conditions. This may encourage households and firms to increase spending and borrowing, potentially generating further inflationary pressure. Conversely, if inflation expectations fall while the nominal APR is unchanged, so the real interest rate will rise, effectively lightening monetary conditions without an explicit policy adjustment. This highlights why Bank Negara Malaysia closely monitors inflation expectation as they significantly influence the effectiveness of monetary policy.
When compared with other Asian economies, Malaysia's 3% OPR is relatively moderate. Indonesia and the Philippines maintain high policy rates at 6.25% and 6.5% respectively, reflecting stronger inflationary pressures, while Thailand's rate stands at 2.5%. Singapore, in contrast, conducts monetary policy through exchange rate management rather than interest rates. Malaysia's moderate OPR supports domestic growth while remaining sufficiently restrictive to contain inflationary risk. Importantly, the OPR also influenced exchange rate stability. In 2024, high interest rates in the United States strengthened the US dollar, easing depreciation pressure on emerging market currencies such as the Malaysian ringgit. By maintaining the OPR at 3%, Bank Negara Malaysia reduce capital outflows, support the ringgit and mitigate the risk of import inflation, thereby enhancing investor confidence.
Next topic is about GDP performance and business cycle. Turning to real economic activity, Malaysia recorded a GDP growth rate of 5.1% in the first quarter of 2024, indicating that the economy was in an expansionary phase of the business cycle. This growth was largely driven by strong private consumption, supported by improved labour market conditions, rising wages and government support measures. Investment activity also showed signs of recovery while the service sector, particularly tourism, experienced significant growth. Such developments are consistent with expansionary macroeconomic conditions, including rising output, increasing employment, and improved business confidence. Given the strong performance, a further reduction in the OPR could have overstimulated aggregate demand and increased inflationary pressures. Therefore, GDP trends justified Bank Negara Malaysia's decision to maintain the OPR at 3%.
Despite strong growth, inflationary pressures remain a concern, particularly due to the diesel subsidy rationalization policy. The increase in diesel price raised production and transportation costs, leading to cost-push inflation, which shift the short-run aggregate supply curve to the left. Unlike demand-pull inflation, cost-push inflation is more challenging to manage using interest rate tools, as tightening monetary policy may unnecessarily suppress economic growth. Within the aggregate demand and aggregate supply framework, maintaining a stable OPR ensures that consumption and investment remain relatively unchanged, preventing a leftward shift in the aggregate demand curve. As a result, output and price levels remain relatively stable, supporting macroeconomic equilibrium.
The last topic is about impact on key economic stakeholders. For households, a stable OPR provides certainty in mortgage and loan repayments, helping to preserve disposable income. Savers benefit from stable deposit rates, particularly retirees who rely on interest income. For SMEs and corporations, predictable borrowing costs reduce uncertainty and encourage long-term investment and employment creation. In the banking sector, a stable OPR supports net interest margins, reduces credit risk, and strengthens financial system resilience. In conclusion, Bank Negara Malaysia's decisions to maintain the OPR at 3% reflects a balanced and forward-looking monetary policy stance. This approach supports economic growth, stabilizes inflation expectations, and safeguards financial and exchange rate stability. So that's all from us. Thank you. I will pass to Aisha for the next discussion.
Bank Negara Malaysia is expected to maintain a cautious and neutral monetary policy stance by keeping the overnight policy rate at 3%, as current inflationary pressures are largely driven by supply-side factors such as the rationalization of sales subsidies rather than strong domestic demand. Raising interest rate at this stage may not effectively control inflation, could instead place additional financial strain on households and businesses, potentially slowing economic growth. By keeping the rate stable, Bank Negara Malaysia aims to support continued investment, particularly among small and medium-sized enterprises, while preserving banking sector stability and manageable loan repayment conditions. At the same time, clear policy communication remains crucial to managing inflation expectation, as guided by a Fisher equation, since expectation alone can influence spending behavior, even without changes in interest rate. Monetary policy is also expected to work alongside targeted fiscal measures, such as focused subsidies and assistance for vulnerable groups to directly address cost-push inflation. Finally, maintaining a stable OPR may help limit excessive exchange rate volatility and imported inflation, supporting overall economic and financial stability amid ongoing global uncertainties.
In this report, a current new article from The Star was analyzed. The article discussed Bank Negara Malaysia's decision to maintain the overnight policy rate, or OPR. This decision was examined using key macroeconomic concepts. These concepts include money and financial system, exchange rate, the global financial system, and the aggregate demand and supply. Based on the analysis, Bank Negara Malaysia decision can be seen as a well-measured and balanced monetary policy approach. At present, inflation remains moderate and Malaysia's economy continues to grow steadily. This growth is supported by strong domestic demand, stable employment conditions, and continued domestic and foreign investment. Because of this, there is no urgent need for Bank Negara Malaysia to either tighten or its monetary policy. Maintaining the current OPR helps preserve price stability while also supporting economic recovery and sustainable long-term growth. From a microeconomic perspective, keeping the OPR unchanged helps maintain stability in aggregate demand. This approach prevents excessive inflation while also ensuring the economic growth is not slowed down. As a result, this policy decision benefit key stakeholders in the economy. Consumers benefit from stable borrowing rates, which make spending and loan repayment more predictable. Businesses are encouraged to invest and expand due to stable interest rates and improved confidence. Meanwhile, the government benefits from a strong and resilient economy, supported by investors' confidence and financial stability. Finally, this policy decision highlight the important roles of monetary policy in managing the business cycle and maintaining macroeconomic stability. It also shows how Bank Negara Malaysia carefully consider both domestic and international economic conditions when making interest rate decisions.